What's good? It's Crypto Neil coming in for another Bitcoin update. Thanks for tuning in today. We're going to go over the higher time frame ideas. But before that, I just want to check out my last video I posted and just review that quickly to see where we are at with today's current price action. So here's just a clip from my last update. 2, 3. And you'll notice that each of these lows are gradually climbing. So low, higher low, higher low. And what does that make when we have higher lows on RSI and lower lows on price? Well, that is bullish divergence on a daily time frame. 3 drives of it, triple tap bottom. This looks really, really good for a potential reversal coming. We also have good volume coming in at this bottom. And you do expect volatility when you approach a bottom. And that's exactly why, or what we're getting essentially in the market. All right, that's enough of me. Back to me. I'm gonna make myself a little bit bigger here. Hopefully you weren't too distracted. So this is Bitcoin on the daily time frame, and we talked about this triple tap and the divergence that it formed. We did get that nice confirmation on, if I can just show the RSI. We did get that confirmation of that triple tap coming in, and that led to higher prices. Ultimately, when we were talking about that, it was over a week ago. And Bitcoin's been kind of in a slow grind to the upside. So we haven't got a lot of traction in this move up until today's open, when we came in to test a key pivotal point on Bitcoin. And what is that? That is the 87 to 90K zone we are fast approaching now. And the reason why this zone is important, or this zone is kind of acting as support resistance, if we just take, I'll just grab a trend line here, you can see where we previously rallied up on when we had this double bottom. This is where we got to in price, failed to get above that, and then came down for that triple tap, got that divergence, and then higher we go. Today, one key point to note. Now, the day is not quite up. I think we have another hour left in the trade session. But if price closes below 88K, that is still to err on the side of caution that we could receive a small pullback before going higher to this 90K zone. But to me, if we get closures above any of these previous candle closures back here, or a closure above this wick, that is a good sign for continuation, and that this triple bounce, or this triple tap rather, is getting confirmed, and we're going higher to the upside. So that is to look forward to in this week, should we get this nice follow through. We are getting RSI starting to get more bullish posturing. However, with the BBWP kind of angled to the downside and not yet basing out, I do think that it's likely, or there's a small probability, that we can consolidate before going for ultimately where we broke down from here. And if we blast right through 90K and get closures above 90K, that to me is an indication that we are obviously going to take this zone next at 96.5. So one step at a time. Obviously any rejections at this point, I think, would say we get to this 90K zone, I do think a rejection would form a higher low and then ultimately reclaim it and then work its way up the stairs and back to essentially former all-time highs before deciding whether or not we dead cat bounce or we go to the parabolic blow off top. So other things to look at in the market while Bitcoin essentially has been slow, things I've been paying attention to essentially are gold and things in the stock market. So gold is starting to go parabolic, and gold, well, gold's boring. It never really does that. So once gold has its top, which could happen soon, we don't really have any bullish divergence in RSI, and I don't trade gold or monitor gold very often, so I haven't back tested to see if my same indicator strategies work. But volatility is near the 100th percentile. Usually when that happens, price needs to cool off and volatility comes back down and price follows, especially when you get any type of parabola. Usually when that parabola breaks, you get minimum of a 40% correction of that move. That is all speculation. We could go a lot higher still. with gold, because once you go parabolic, you don't want to be shorting a move that could just keep climbing percentiles higher day after day. So rather than chasing the top, we wait for confirmation. We wait till some sort of divergence or a lower high, and then that would confirm that money is moving from asset to asset. And watching money flow is something I think has a lot of merit when you are day trading, especially now that Bitcoin is acting more like a stock than stocks itself, which are quite volatile and getting these large percentile moves. So we do have the S&P and the NASDAQ down on the day, again, quite heavily to the downside. If I just take a measurement, I'm not sure where we opened. Well, I guess we gapped down 2% down, 3% at its worst. That's quite a lot. Quite a large move to the downside for stocks in itself. That's the S&P. So when we get these large moves to the downside in stocks, I typically do expect follow through in Bitcoin. However, we are getting the opposite. We are getting money flowing out of the stock market and flowing into risk on assets. So when gold reverses and goes to the downside, I do think that is our key or our signal for essentially this move that I've been talking about with Bitcoin, where we attempt to go to these highs and either we get back to them and fall, and that's our dead cat bounce. That's our confirmation of a lower high on a weekly time frame, and that is our confirmation of a bear market. Or we go for new all-time highs, in which case the market would be going for a blow off top. And if I go to larger time frames, that is when we get this blue line that I initially drew when we broke out, or before we broke out of this 6-month structure. That is when we get the rest of this move to come to fruition. And yes, I drew targets all the way up around 123K. I do think that is most likely once we break these former highs around 106K. That's the next move to be looking for should we start climbing the stairs and moving higher. So that is all hopium right now, but it's good to keep in the back of your mind, especially if you are looking for more momentous long-term positions that have higher risk reward. You want to stack up when you find a bottom on lower time frames, as we did on the triple tap, and then you want to hold through conviction. So ultimately, having these goals and having these targets in mind and having all these scenarios in the back of your head while you're holding long-term positions, it gives you the conviction to hold through the dips when you do hit these key levels. You're not just going to panic sell. You might take profits and then load up again on a bounce and then be able to hold for higher prices, which is going to get you those larger gains. So that's Bitcoin on a daily time frame. Is there anything else I can check out with my timing here? Yeah, we got 8 minutes. So let's just jump on to a couple other things right now. Ethereum. What do we have here? So Ethereum on a lower time frame. Ethereum is performing more like the stocks, and this is true for many of the other altcoins. So we didn't really get a bounce today. We got a bounce and then quickly rejected. XRP, similar on the daily candle. Solana, similar on the daily candle, with quite a lot of volume on this rejection. Not looking good. Should we get a bearish engulfing candle, or essentially it'd be a bearish hammer to the downside, morning star candle, whatever you want to call it. These top market cap cryptos all looking like they're forming essentially a short-term top. This is the only bearish scenario I have for Bitcoin, and that is Bitcoin rejects here and ultimately just forms a lower low, and this all was just a trap move or a fake out, you might call it. I don't think that's in play, but it is to keep in the background. Stocks are selling off. Altcoins are selling off. Right now, money is flowing only into Bitcoin. So that should be a sign of caution, because you typically want to see follow through in the entire asset class. You don't just want to see follow through in one particular stock or Bitcoin itself. So that is the downside caution. But until then, we hold our longs from the bottom with conviction and could be expecting a pullback quite soon. especially around this 90K region, which acted as a major rejection point. So ultimately, I do think volatility could base out as we go into the 90K zone. Price can consolidate. That gives volatility a chance to form extreme lows and then expand. And then that would be your volatile swing and create momentum to the upside. So hopefully I'm making sense with all this. I know it's a lot to take in and ingest all at once with my jumbled thoughts all put together in one video. So thanks for tuning in. And if you do find this content valuable, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I do appreciate anyone checking out the channel to drop a comment because it helps me create the content that you so desire and not just ramble on in these forms of videos. So anyway, that's going to do it for me. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you have yourself a fantastic trade week, and Crypto Neil out. Peace.